Almost a year ago now, I played a game on the channel called Vile that left an impression on me that I really felt was a work of art, but definitely left just a difficult, challenging feeling after playing it. The video that I uploaded was titled, "This itch.io game disgusted me, but it has a point." Vile seems to be about a lot of things. It seems to be a celebration of horror media and the people who love it and create it. And in Vile, there is stuff about horror and bordering on snuff films in the fictional universe. There is a commentary on sex workers and pornographic actors, and also on the parasocial attachment that fans create and the entitlement, especially male entitlement towards female creators, for them to always be seen in those roles and always be entitled to act as though they are in those roles. It is a game that has a lot of violence, sexual and otherwise, at least heavily implied, if not always outright shown. And it is a game that makes you feel bad. You feel dirty and grimy after playing it. You basically go through a computer of the perpetrator and you find out all about his obsessions and his collections and his dealing with various women and things like that, leading up to a murder, basically looking at traces of this murder. So there is a full version of Vile. When I played it, it was just Vile. It came out on itch last October is when I played it. There is now Vile Exhumed, which was the full game that the creator has been working on for some time now, and just saw that the game was apparently banned for sale on Steam. And this is among a lot of other stuff that's going on with the games industry at the same time. So I'm just going to read from the statement here from the creator, RE Vile Exhumed. I am extremely disappointed to let you all know that Vile Exhumed has been fully removed and banned for sale on Steam. Dread XP and I are working actively to make sure that we can make the game available to you ASAP. Next week, you can expect to hear specific details. I want to be clear, Vile Exhumed was not banned for its use of gore in storytelling or the violent themes. It was banned for sexual content with depictions of real people, which, if you have played it, you know is all implied, making this all feel even worse. I refuse to censor or make changes to the game. I will not retell a story about these topics in a way to make people who don't understand it more comfortable. For updates and to know how to play Vile Exhumed, follow me and Dread XP on Twitter or join the Dread XP Discord. At DirtLord77, Final Girl Games, Kara Cadaver. Thank you all for your support, and I am deeply sorry to anyone else being affected by those working to actively censor art. Here is the warning that pops up for Vile Exhumed, which is very much like the warning I got for the original Vile. Vile Exhumed is best experienced in one sitting, and there will be no opportunity to save before quitting the game. Vile Exhumed contains content that may be triggering to some players, such as references to sexual assault and violence against women, as well as depictions of gore. Please take care while playing. Like I said, these were elements that were present in the original Vile, which I addressed with a little warning before I played. And to be honest, I think that is the way it should be. I think we should not be afraid to address challenging, meaningful topics in video games, provided that people know with a fair warning what they're going into so they're not blindsided by it and hit with something that they're not in the mindset to be handling without warning. But after somebody knows what they're in for, they should be able to experience a work of art that contains themes that are challenging and difficult and uncomfortable, because that is part of being a human and of having full range of expression. I'm going to go ahead and play the trailer for Vile Exhumed, just so you can get a sort of feel for what the game kind of looks and sounds like and the type of atmosphere it has.
I just got ready for bed. There's a noise in the kitchen. I have a cat, so I thought it. Sorry.
Just take your time.
And I thought it was my cat.
Now, Vile is not the only game being affected by this right now, and it kind of hits close to the channel because I like to play indie games, and I like to play games with challenging subject matter and darker themes and sometimes more uncomfortable stuff. And I have always had an environment where we approach these games openly with just a little bit of warning about what the game has contained, but with an openness to receiving the message that's in them. One game that we played before was Mouthwashing, and Mouthwashing was a beautiful, disturbing game. Definitely left you with a sick feeling after playing it. Hi, Editor Noctum here. There was apparently some confusion where the creators of Mouthwashing thought that the game was delisted on itch because of everything going on. Turns out there was some other issue where maybe it linked back to the Steam store and that was in violation, so it was never actually listed on itch the way they thought it was. And it had nothing to do with the rest of this video, but mouthwashing is still pretty on theme for what I'm talking about here with how we like to play games with challenging and dark subjects, and you should play mouthwashing. That said, if there's any weird cuts throughout the video or references to mouthwashing or anything like that, just know that I made this video with one set of information in mind, and then I found correct information later, so I'm changing it now the best I can. Okay, thanks. The other game is Fear and Hunger, and we just happen to be playing Fear and Hunger for the first time. Now, I am playing it blind, so I don't know everything that's in the game, but I have experienced plenty to know some of what it deals in. Now, there is, some discussion to be had here in as much as I literally am doing censorship on Fear and Hunger because I am playing with a popular censor mod, but that is specifically so that the playthrough is accessible on Twitch and YouTube, and so that we can bring that game, the playthrough and the experience of the game to people on all of those platforms without being removed. So how does this all tie in? So apparently there was an organization called Collective Shout that wrote to payment processors. Basically, first they went to Steam and they tried to get these games pulled, games that they objected to. And when that didn't work, they had over 1,000 people send letters to payment processors demanding that they pull their service from Steam if Steam does not pull these games that they find objectionable. So that resulted in Steam basically delisting a bunch of adult games in one frantic swoop because they just couldn't risk their payment processing being pulled. That is how they collect money for the games. So it's really sort of economic sabotage where it's not even being done by the platform, where the platform decides we don't really want to host this type of game anymore. It's something where a small interest group has gone and applied pressure to the payment processors. And then Itch followed suit shortly after, and it delisted a bunch of content too. So what that means in terms of Itch, as I'm being told, is if something is in your library already, you can still access it. And I guess if you have a direct link to the game page, you can still access it, but it's no longer indexed on the site. You can no longer go to the site and search it. So, as I was saying, Fear and Hunger, both 1 and 2, apparently now are delisted on itch. I have confirmed this. I went on there looking for the games, and when you search it, it comes up with nothing but the mods currently. Now, it does appear these games are still accessible on Steam. So something to sort of note here is these are not the games that Collective Shout say they were going after. They were originally sort of their flagship that they were trying to get pulled down here recently was based on a game that apparently centered rape and sexual assault and incest as a part of the gameplay. And that was the thing that they put forward that they wanted banned, and that has led to all of these other things being caught up, which tends to be the problem with incremental censorship and with bureaucratic determination on what is and isn't acceptable. Nobody wants to be the person to say, yeah, we should have games that are just glorifying fantasy violence and rape and all this other stuff. But what's happening is now games that are created even by women and LGBT people and survivors of sexual assault and all of this. Games that want to explore the trauma that is involved with these things, that want to explore the acceptance of it, the societal implications of it. All these games by small independent creators who may have invested serious time and perhaps money and opportunities in making their games are impacted as a result. Now, this type of censorship debate is old, and I mean possibly as old as recorded media. This is something we've gone round and round on, and I'm afraid personally that we are entering a period of sort of puritanism where a lot of people now are wanting to ban or keep from being sold games that they think cross a line and think that other people shouldn't be exposed to. And this is happening not just with games that have content that would be illegal, but it just games that people feel have content that is too shocking, that shows violence that is too real and harmful to people in real life, that they think that it should not be allowed. Now, what I find interesting about that is we're having this panic right now with video games. And video games, of course, have been under scrutiny for many decades. I mean, I was a child when the Grand Theft Auto controversy was the big thing, that it was causing school violence and all that. So it's nothing new in that regard. And of course, it happens with films too. There are famous controversies around films that got banned in various places and things like that. But what I find interesting is when you go over to Amazon, I've just done a quick search, and you can find the Marquis de Sade on Amazon, and I can have the 120 Days of Sodom delivered to me tomorrow by Amazon. And if you're not familiar with it, it features descriptions of acts that are so depraved and violent and illegal. It is far in excess of pretty much anything we're talking about here. Video game wise, it is absolutely disgusting and disconcerting, and it is a controversy that has transcended generations. But when you look at criticisms and when you look at political thought around this, I mean, and I'm nobody to say that I can be a representative of feminism or anything like that, but even feminist philosophers like Simone de Beauvoir, they stood up for the right of people to create literature such as this. De Beauvoir famously asked, should we burn Sod? And basically reasoned that as objectionable as it is, as horrible as it is, as much as we can disagree with the content therein, that there are reasons to avoid this level of censorship, and it has to do with a lot of things. It has to do with uneven power structures and lacking the ability to critique those in charge. It also has to do with understanding the way that the mind works and the way that these different fantasies and things play out, rather than hiding it and bringing it into obscurity. The issue here, as I understand it, with Vile Exhumed is actually not necessarily the gore or the violence or anything like that, but with sexual depictions of real people. And the interesting thing about that is the author herself took those images of herself. They are images of her. So all of the problematic, supposedly, depictions of people in sexual context, which are not really, they're not graphic in a way. Like, I was able to play through the game before. They leave enough to the imagination. It's not outright graphic sexual content. But even then, even being of the author herself, apparently that was enough to get the game banned for sale on Steam. So I certainly, for my part, I'm going to be keeping up with this. I enjoyed playing Vile. I look forward to playing Vile Exhumed. Apparently, they're working on some kind of alternative plan to make the game accessible and available for sale. But overall, let me know what you think. Obviously, I have pretty strong opinions about this. I think this is a step in the wrong direction. I think video games deserve protection as much as any other medium or art form. And I think this type of censorship is ultimately only going to blanket ban things and harm small creators who have actual meaningful works of art that they have been working on or would have worked on and produced and will now no longer be able to bring them out. Do you think that there needs to be some form of alternative market, some form of decentralized sort of online store for games, or maybe even a return to physical printing and distribution of games so that you can always have your copy preserved and that you can buy it directly from the creator? And then you don't necessarily have to worry about whether the online storefront accepts it or not. There's a lot to talk about here, and I want to know your thoughts. But the one thing I don't want this to be, I don't want this to turn into feminism bad, whatever, just because Collective Shout, this one group, is using it in a way that is wielding it bluntly against everybody and damaging everybody as a result. It can very much be argued that a lot of the works impacted are feminist in nature and that they themselves are being injured by the actions of this one group that is engaging in economic coercion. With that said, I will try to leave links available to some of these games that we've played. I will leave a link to my Vile playthrough. I will leave a link to my Fear and Hunger playthrough. If you like those games or are curious about them and you want to see them in an environment where they are given respectful and mature consideration of the